This is Old Line Farmer Radio, a Maryland Farm Bureau production, helping you achieve your best farm future.
Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to Old Line Farmer Radio. My name is Jeb Burchick, and I'm the Director of Communications for Maryland Farm Bureau, and I'm going to be your host this week. It's currently March 21st, and the estimated average price of corn in Maryland is $4.88 per bushel, and soybeans is at $9.62 per bushel, and these prices remain slightly stagnant from the past few weeks. A couple of headlines for this week. The USDA announced up to $10 billion in economic assistance to agricultural producers through the Emergency Commodity Assistance Program for the 2024 crop year. This economic assistance is directed at corn, soybean, wheat, sorghum, and other field crop farmers across the country. American Farm Bureau President Zippy Duvall applauded this announcement, stating that it will help farmers facing low commodity prices while wrestling with inflation, high interest rates, and supply costs. Farmers can visit fsa.usda.gov/ECAP to apply. Our friends at the Delmarva Chicken Association are reporting that the Delmarva chicken community generated $4.8 billion in sales in 2024. The report also shows that chicken companies on the peninsula spent $1.3 billion on grain and other feed ingredients last year. Despite challenges, this important industry contributes so much to our state's agriculture sector. So Maryland Farm Bureau continues to advocate for a business-friendly climate for our chicken producers and farmers. In positive news by our Maryland Farm Bureau members, in response to our action alert against Maryland's proposed budget cuts to ag programs, nearly 700 letters have been sent to state legislators by you. Clearly, the message is getting through to the legislators, and we'll have more to report on in the coming weeks related to the budget cuts. But it's important to know that we can't let up on the gas pedal just yet, so if you haven't done so already, please easily write your lawmakers in opposition to these short-sighted cuts by visiting mdfarmbureau.com/action-center. And we want to thank everybody who's already reached out to the legislators in response to these cuts. Newly elected Senator Angela Alsobrooks took to the Eastern Shore this week to speak with members of Maryland's agricultural community. She gathered with a number of farmers and agricultural stakeholders in Dorchester County. William Layton, the owner of Layton Chance Vineyard and Winery and board member of the Maryland Farm Bureau, hosted the senator at his farm. Parker Welch speaks with William Layton about his meeting and the policy issues that were discussed.
Good morning. I'm Parker Welch with Maryland Farm Bureau, and I am interviewing today for Old Line Farmer. I'm here with William Layton, who is a former Dorchester County Farm Bureau president and now is a member of the Maryland Farm Bureau board, representing District 6, which is the lower Eastern Shore. And so I'll hand it over to William and just give us a little introduction of you and yourself and your operation.
Thank you, Parker. My name is William Layton. I currently operate Layton's Chance Winery. We grow 15 acres of grapes and make wine right here at our winery on our property, somewhere around 15,000 gallons of wine a year. Before we started the winery, I'm a third-generation grain farmer. We just recently got out of grain, but had grown corn, soybeans, and wheat for over 70 years on our farm, and I served on both the Maryland and national soybean boards.
Okay, well, we appreciate you taking the time this morning to sit down for an interview. Earlier this week, we got to see each other at your place because you hosted a ag roundtable for newly elected Senator Alsobrooks. And so just kind of describe how you thought that meeting went and if there were any kind of big takeaways you had from that meeting.
I thought it was a great meeting. Most people were just really happy that she took the time to come out to the Eastern Shore and to talk to farmers, to find out what our issues were. And it was really a great opportunity for her to learn about farming. I mean, obviously, she knows the chicken industry is big, but she doesn't certainly know all the issues. Probably one of my biggest takeaways from that meeting was when Jenny Rhodes asked her about farm credit. And she went through and talked about what she wanted done. And then the senator says, "Can you explain to me what farm credit is?" But that's great because people in rural areas or in urban areas don't have to deal with farm credit. They don't necessarily know it like we do. And so it was a great opportunity for her to learn the things that we deal with and a little bit about the issues that go with it.
Yeah, when the Secretary Addix said talked about alphabet soup, I often think about that when we talk in acronyms and a lot of the programs that we're so familiar with that, we're how we explain those and help others to understand what they are, is vitally important. So
I got lost in some of those alphabet soup along the way there too.
I know sometimes I'm like, I should probably know that acronym. So, the
Yeah.
senator did mention that one of her priorities for all Marylanders was providing economic opportunities. And so, were there any key initiatives discussed to help protect or enhance those opportunities for Maryland farmers?
I think one of the biggest things that was talked about is certainly the Farm Bill. That's a few years overdue now, and is really an important piece. It covers so much with crop insurance and price protections, um, programs that FSA does, that getting that done and getting the things we need in there is really one of the biggest issues, and certainly something we talked about quite a bit.
Yeah, I really appreciated the senator's comments about working across the aisle because, as we know, it's a very bipartisan issue and piece of legislation. So, her priority in helping getting that across the finish line uh, was much
It is.
appreciated.
Yeah.
Another piece that we talked about right at the end was the senator's Tariff Transparency Act, and obviously the last 8 weeks we've heard a lot about tariffs, and so in that ever-changing landscape, what kind of impacts do you see for Maryland farmers, and as we talk about all different types of commodities? I know even alcohol, and I don't know that impacts you directly, but there's tariffs on a wide variety of commodities. So just kind of the
It,
impacts you see on agriculture and Maryland farmers.
it is, and it will impact alcohol to some degree for us. But I think Maryland is especially at risk when you look at uh, our biggest corn export market is Mexico. Our biggest soybean export market is China. And Purdue, with chickens, sends tons of chicken paws and things that Americans don't necessarily eat to China and Asian countries that do want those products. So much of our stuff goes overseas to those markets that tariffs really hurt us quite a bit. And I think that's where again the Farm Bill comes into effect, having protections in there, the crop insurance, the price protections that help us to deal with what's coming with those tariffs. So things will even out at some point, but in the short run, it's going to be prices are going to get really hurt, and farmers are going to get really hurt from that.
Kind of with that, coupling it, as we see, we're in the midst of our 90-day session here in Maryland. With the trade policy decisions happening in DC, what do you see, if anything, that the state can do to help alleviate or provide assistance or help Maryland farmers?
Well, unfortunately, it seems to me that it's kind of the perfect storm where not only are we going to get hit by tariffs and issues at the federal level, but with the budget problems at the state level, we're losing funding to our BIDCO, to cover crops, to MALF, to those organizations that are really going to help us in tough times. So hopefully MDA can find the funding to help with a lot of those problems, but issues. But it seems like we're losing support on that side also.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of the budget conversation. We recognize there's a lot of decisions and tough decisions that had to be made this year to help balance, and so a lot of those critical ag programs unfortunately saw some cuts. We will keep working to help educate folks on the importance and how those impact farmers there on the
Yeah.
ground or at the farm gate. But well, I want to thank you this morning for joining us and appreciate you hopping on for interview for Old Line Farmer. This is my first interview, so Hopefully it went all right, and Jeb doesn't tell me it's going to be my last. But really thank you for your time this morning, and appreciate you hopping on.
Certainly glad to do it. I wish I had better news that we were getting more funding and more stuff going on, but
I don't know if
that's
that's a
kind of where we are
coincidence
right now.
that this was my first interview. Got to deliver all the bad news, but no, I really appreciate it, William, and thank you so much.
Certainly, thank you.
The 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is set to expire at the end of this year, eliminating many beneficial provisions for farmers and ranchers. American Farm Bureau's Chad Smith has the story.
The 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is set to expire this year if Congress doesn't take action. Dustin Shearer, Director of Government Affairs for the American Farm Bureau Federation, says letting the act expire would have significant impacts to agriculture and a majority of Americans.
If nothing is done, there will be a tax increase at the end of the year that will hit farmers and ranchers in the pocketbooks. Overall, ag will be taxed tens of billions of dollars more than they otherwise would. And we need to make sure that Congress does its job and makes these tax reforms permanent.
Shearer says the TCJA includes many provisions that are beneficial to lowering Americans' tax bills.
65% of American households across the country are going to see a tax increase in the trillions of dollars. Farmers and ranchers, the overall tax rates that their business income is taxed at went down. The estate tax exemption was doubled from $5.5 million to $11 million indexed to inflation. A lot of important provisions to agriculture in these expiring provisions.
There are still several steps to renewing the legislation, the first of which is the reconciliation process between the Senate and the House.
February 20th, the Senate passed its version of a budget resolution, which only dealt with some energy provisions, some border policy, and some additional defense spending. And then the following week, the House passed a budget resolution that's aimed towards having one big, beautiful bill, as Speaker Johnson and President Trump have referred to it. And so that happened on February 25th.
Stay tuned to FB.org for the latest updates. Chad Smith, Washington.
So a few weeks ago, we had a giveaway on our social media page for one lucky winner to win some exclusive Maryland Farm Bureau merch. So we loaded up all of those names to everyone who participated into this random name generator, and we are going to give it a spin to see who wins. Congratulations, Morgan. We'll get in touch with you soon about how you can receive your winnings. We thank you for participating. And with that, please give us a rating and a review. And if you learned something today, please share this podcast with your friends. Old Line Farmer Radio is a production of Maryland Farm Bureau, produced by Jeb Burchick. Contributions this week from Parker Welch and Chad Smith. Introduction by Hollis Zimmerman. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time on Old Line Farmer Radio.